Our 4-0 Kansas Jayhawks return home to the booth for some more in-conference play, as today we'll be hosting the 2-2 TCU Horned Frogs as we look to keep our undefeated record intact. Through non-conference play, our team really wasn't challenged at all. We had 3 blowouts. Life was good. However, we had our first true test in the last episode on the road in West Virginia. We almost lost to the Mountaineers, winning this game 26-24, and it was certainly an interesting one. We started off really well with 2 big Lawrence Arnold touchdowns in the first quarter, but we slowed down after that. Only 5 points in the second half, including a game-winning safety. Jalen Daniels did have a really good game through the air. I think part of the reason why the offense struggled in the second half is we went away from the passing game after it worked so well in the first half. Defensively, certainly not as good as the first 3 weeks of the year, but we made big plays when we needed to. Obviously, the TFL by J.B. Brown in the fourth quarter kind of won us the game. And West Virginia had an opportunity late, but we were able to hold them to finish it off. Dakaius Brinkley, the true freshman, won the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week with 2 more sacks. He now has 8 this year, which is tied for the lead in college football. And in this game against West Virginia, he faced off against a 90 overall All-American left tackle, and he passed the test with flying colors. He continues to play at an unbelievably high level, and I think it's fair to say, now that we're through 4 games, we have a pretty easy choice regarding redshirting him. We're obviously not going to do it. Let's now talk recruiting, and for the first time this year, we've got players who are ready to announce their commitments, including 4 stars George Shembo and Angel Logan. So let's start with the good news. Ben Bieria, a 3-star edge rusher, has committed to the program. I'm really excited about this kid. He's very highly ranked for a 3-star, and he's also a gem. He knows how to win with quickness, he's got good athleticism, and I think he could be a really good player for us down the line. The bad news is that we lost out on both of the 2 4-stars. George Shembo is going to Alabama, and Angel Logan is going to LSU. With Shembo, it really wasn't a surprise. We were never going to win that battle, but with Angel Logan, we just narrowly lost. It was neck and neck between us and LSU over the last couple of weeks. I was really hoping to land him because of how cool it is with the storyline of him being Zay Logan's brother. But it wasn't meant to be. He's headed to the Tigers. We do have a number of other players who have narrowed down their lists. Wide receiver Dorian Pepper and edge rusher Seth Jennings are down to 3. 2 guys who I think have a very high likelihood of committing to the program. We're going to talk a lot about the receivers on the board today, including Pepper. Jennings, meanwhile, we went over in the last episode. Jamerson Moore and Athia Kiaho are down to 5, while Cameron Hardwick is down to 8. We're first on everybody here other than Moore, whom we are in 4th for. So we're going to keep everybody who's committed on the board, including Shembo and Logan. That's because they both have deal breakers. Alabama currently is an A championship contender, even though they're 1-2. It's unlikely, but I figured it's worth a shot to hold on to him in case that gets lower than a B-. Angel Logan's deal breaker is playing time, and as you can see, they already have 2 commitments from higher ranked edge rushers. I think it's really possible that Angel Logan backs out of his commitment to LSU, and if he does, I don't think he would reopen it. I think he would flip over to us. Again, it's not overly likely, but it's possible. So because of that, we're going to keep him and Shembo on the board, along with obviously Ben Bieria. So with those 3 guys now committed to schools, we have an extra 200 recruiting hours that we'll be able to use. We also have a number of prospects who will be on campus visiting today for our game against TCU. As you can see, a lot of these battles are really getting down to it. Clyde Poole, for instance, should be ready to commit next week. Seth Jennings, meanwhile, will be making his official visit, and if it goes well, I think his commitment with our program will be locked up. Same goes for wide receiver Dorian Pepper. He'll be on campus today. If he commits, I like our chances within this battle. Jazir Tolbert will be visiting as well. Tolbert, along with Jennings, are 2 guys who we talked about in the last episode, both of whom being from the state of Kansas. I really want to focus on recruiting in-state because the Kansas Jayhawks have struggled to do so. We are in first place for 3 of the top 4 players in the state, including Tolbert and Jennings, both of whom, again, will be on campus today. But let's talk about wide receiver. It's no secret that receiver might be the biggest long-term position of need on this roster, because we only have one non-senior here, that being 66 overall redshirt freshman Keaton Kubeka. Realistically, we're going to go after receiver hard in the transfer portal, but we also need to add some youth here, and there are a number of guys I like, and we're going to talk about a few of them today. And that starts with Dorian Pepper, a 3-star from St. Francisville, Louisiana. We had the inside track on this battle. We have a pretty comfortable lead over Louisiana Lafayette, and we're probably going to get him to commit after his visit this week. His deal breaker is playing time, which we barely fit the criteria of, even though we only have one receiver on the roster next year. Let's take a look at this prospect coming from St. Francisville High School. 6'2", around 195. I think he's one of the more polished 3-star receivers you'll find. He doesn't necessarily have elite quickness or elite speed, but I think he's a pretty good route runner. I think he's got solid hands, and if he can improve as a separator, I'm very confident that he's going to be an all-around strong receiver at the next level. I think he's got a good chance to play early, maybe not next season, depending on how we do in the transfer portal, but as soon as his second season with us, I could see him being a full-time starter. And the same goes for Sheldon Brink, who as well has a deal breaker of playing time. Brink will also be visiting the campus this week, and as you can see, it's a competitive visit with wide receiver Dorian Pepper, and both of them lose a few points for going on the same visit, but I don't see it that way. Considering the likelihood of these two prospects committing, they're going to be in the same receiver room together. Because of that, I want these guys to be around each other, get to know each other, and hopefully become good buddies. As we take a look at Brink, coming from Hampton High School in Georgia, he stands at 6'3", a little bit under 200 pounds. I think he has more upside than Dorian Pepper. He's faster, he's more dynamic, he's a little bit more electric with the ball, but I think he's a little bit less polished as a receiver, and I think it's more likely Pepper makes an early impact, but I think it's more likely Brink becomes a star player, and eventually an NFL prospect if all goes well. Brink is ranked around 300 spots lower than Pepper, but he is a gem. I like his upside because he can win in a variety of different ways, with his speed, with his physicality. If he becomes a more consistent route runner and a better separator, there's no reason to think he can't be our top receiver for years to come. So I'm really high on the likelihood of getting both Pepper and Brink to commit. It's going to be a lot harder, though, with this battle for Trent Aurora, a wide receiver from Starkville, Mississippi. His deal breaker is proximity to home, and lucky for us, Ole Miss is the other team competing for him. The Rebels have the lead, but I'm still going to try to get him because I think this is a guy who has a really good chance to start day one if he commits to our program. Aurora stands at 5'11", 180 pounds. He's certainly on the smaller side, but I think he could really fit nicely in the slot. He's fast, but he excels in terms of his short area quickness, which is an important trait for slot receivers. He's a good route runner within 15 to 20 yards. He's not as good as stretching the field vertically, so because of that, I could really see him replacing the Luke Grimm role if he were to commit. It's unlikely, but I'm still going to try. We have a couple other receivers on the board with JUCO Jr. Mario Maddox and 3-star Philip Olawale. There aren't a ton of other teams in the running, so we'll talk about these guys in a future episode. Maddox in particular is a player I'm really excited about. So let's figure out how we're going to use these extra 200 points, and that starts with scheduling visits. We've got a few players who are ready to come to campus. We'll start with defensive tackle Afia Kiaho, and I think I'm going to have him come week 7, not during a game, which might seem a little bit surprising, but I would like to get this commitment done as quickly as possible, so that's why I'm going to have him come early. Jamerson Moore is a battle we're kind of struggling in. We haven't put a ton of resources into him yet, but now that we've got some extra points, I think I'm ready to really dive in to the Jamerson Moore sweepstakes. We only have one green check mark on him, but we do know he cares about championship contender, so that's going to be his activity for the visit. As for Trent Aurora, I'm really not sure what I want to do here because I think there's a good chance he commits before week 7. Do I want to take the chance and have him visit week 8? Hope we win and get some extra points? I don't think it's worth it because I don't think he's going to be available in week 8. I think he's already going to make his decision. The quicker we can get him to campus, the better. That's the only way we're going to land him, I think, is if we have him visit as soon as possible. So now that we've scheduled 3 visits, we've got 80 points or 80 recruiting hours left to spend. So for Jazir Tolbert, we now have his 3 green check marks, and we are going to hard sell. Kansas State made up a little bit of ground on him last week. I certainly don't want that to be a trend. As for Trent Aurora, we're now going to hard sell with him as well. And I'm going to put 50 recruiting hours into him just because I want to give us the maximum opportunity to get him. We have 2 green check marks for Mario Maddox, and since it's a one-team race, I'm going to put less hours into him. That way we can enter the battles for guys like tight end Zach Stokes and linebacker Jamerson Moore, along with safety Chip Calvin, who appears to be a gem. Doesn't have a lot of interest around the country. Same applies for corner Gio Chinasa, and then kicker Anthony Escalante. Yes, I'm putting recruiting hours into a kicker. I think he could be pretty good, and our kicker position has certainly been a question mark this year. So now that we have our first commitment, we had the 124th ranked recruiting class. I know it's not great, but it could be worse. Look at Kansas State in dead last. You really hate to see it. So that'll bring us here to our Week 5 game against TCU. As we know, we are 1-0 within the conference, coming off a very close win against West Virginia. And again, if a few plays go differently, we would not have won that game. So hopefully we will put on a better performance today here at home against a TCU team who has lost 2 in a row, but those 2 losses were to good teams only by a combined 4 points. They have beaten Stanford back in Week 1, they barely lost to UCF, and they lost a close game to an SMU team that I think is really good. SMU is ranked 17. They're 4-0. I think they're really strong. So this TCU team is not to be taken lightly. They've lost back-to-back close games. Got to imagine they're going to be extra hungry and extra motivated to come to our house and get the upset. Now, the Horned Frogs are not the national championship contender they were a couple years ago, but they've got some solid players with sophomore quarterback Josh Hoover leading the way as he ended up winning the quarterback battle. Cam Cook leads the backfield along with 2-time transfer Trey Sanders, once a 5-star recruit at the University of Alabama. I would expect both of them to get the ball quite a bit. Their 3 highest rated players are at wide receiver, and that's along with another former Alabama transfer in JoJo Earl. It's going to be hard to cover all these guys, and I think defensively they're pretty strong as well. 85 overall on that side of the ball. In terms of team rating, these 2 squads are pretty even. Even though we're number 10 and they're unranked, only 500, this is going to be a battle, and if the West Virginia game last week was any preview for what we're going to expect in Big 12 play, I would expect a lot of dogfights. And let's see if we have another one here at home, Week 5, looking to improve to 5-0. We'll see if Kansas can get the win against a really strong TCU squad. So the Jayhawks will open up on offense. We'll get our first look at Devin Neal, Jalen Daniels, and the gang. We didn't run the ball well last week. We did throw the ball well, so because of that, if the passing game has another strong performance, I really want to focus on that throughout this game. 3rd and 5. The curl route is hauled in by Lawrence Arnold, who had a season-high 150 yards last week, including 2 scores in the first quarter. 3rd and 3 now. Read option with Daniels to the right side. Outruns the defender, jukes away from a couple more, and gets the first down to around the 41-yard line. Good run there for Jalen Daniels. 3rd down and 8 now. Daniels looks to throw it, sends it downfield, and it is broken up. Looking for the tight end, Jared Casey. Kansas elects to punt it away here with Damon Greaves. And this one could be a beauty, and it is! What a punt! Downed at the 2. Part of the reason why we won last week was because of the safety late in the game. How did we get the safety? Off of a punt downed at the 1. We'll see if we're able to get another one here as it's 3rd and 10 for TCU. Some movement at the line of scrimmage, no flag. Hoover under pressure, goes short. It's caught, but only for a gain of 2. Quick tackle by Damani Maxon, the freshman. 3rd and 8, Daniels under pressure. On the run, it's broken up, incomplete. And the Jayhawks ultimately elect to punt it away. TCU gets it back. Here's Trey Sanders losing yardage. Wrapped up by Damani Maxon, who makes another play. 2nd and 11. Hoover looking downfield. He's got an open man. It's DJ Rogers. He gets around 22. That'll keep the chains moving for a first down. 2nd and 10 with around 3 to go in the quarter. Sanders cuts to the right side and loses yardage again, courteous of Damani Maxon, who's been flying around the field so far. And now it's 3rd and 12. They'll go back to the ground with Sanders, and Kansas sees it coming. It's a gain of around 4 or 5 for Sanders. You can take a guess who was there with the tackle. Damani Maxon. That forces a punt, and Kansas gets it back as Luke Grimm hauls it in up the middle. That'll go for a first down. So far, the passing game has been quiet in this matchup. Unlike last week against West Virginia, as Jalen Daniels hits the 1,000 passing yards mark for the year. Devin Neal to the outside, gets by a defender. Neal with space in the open field is wrapped up at the 40. Big run for Devin Neal, and so far the ground game has been a lot better than last week. 3rd and 6, it is broken up for Grimm, and Kansas will elect to ultimately kick. It's a 53-yarder. This will be the longest of the year for Owen Piper-Gerdes, who has gotten better as the season's gone on. To take the lead, it is no good. Just a little bit short and just a little bit to the left. Owen Piper-Gerdes misses his first kick since week 2, and the Jayhawks are held off the board as this game remains scoreless. So TCU will get it back. We'll see if they can be the first to score some points here as we get set for the final play of the first quarter. 2nd down and 9 for the Frogs. Hoover taking his time. Hands it off for Trey Sanders to the left side. He gets by a defender and is leveled by Devin Dye. And that'll wrap up the first quarter in very uncharacteristic Big 12 fashion. This game is scoreless. It's been a defensive battle up to this point. Our offense, particularly our passing game, has not started off very well. But on the flip side, the defense has been tremendous. 2nd and 2 to start this What is going on there in the backfield? Yeah, I don't think that's supposed to happen. Another EA Sports disaster class, everybody. That'll be a delay of game on TCU, and they'll have to move back 5 yards. Certainly an interesting start to the second quarter. I think we'll leave it at that and try to forget that play ever happened. After making up the yardage, it's 3rd and 1, and Cam Cook does not get it. Wrapped up on the play by Dylan Brooks, and TCU on 4th and short would elect to punt it away. Still scoreless, 3rd and 8. Daniels under a ton of pressure, sending it downfield. It's caught. He got lucky there with 2 defenders in his face. Throws up a prayer, and it's caught by Arnold. 3rd and 9 now. Short throw caught by Luke Grimm. He does not get the first down, gaining around 4, and that leads to a punt. Still no score. 3rd and 1. Cam Cook up the middle gets the first down. We'll see if this can help TCU establish the ground game. As on 3rd and 7, Hoover is an empty. Under pressure, he is sacked by Dakias Brinkley. The freshman with his 9th sack of the year. He's gotten at least 1 now in all 5 of his collegiate games. This kid continues to be amazing as the Jayhawks get it back. Devin Neal up the middle with a big run. He's been really efficient today, averaging almost 8.5 yards per carry. The Jayhawks should probably give him the ball more, being that he's the only guy on offense who looks awake. It's a screen here for the senior, Quentin Skinner, breaking tackles. Nobody can bring him down, and he gets it inside the 20. Huge gain there for Skinner, who's been quiet this year. We're looking to get him a bigger piece within the offense. Now a 3rd and 1. Daniels keeps it himself, and he loses yardage. What do you do here on 4th and 2? In a game where there hasn't been a lot of offense, you need all the points you can get. But on the flip side, a touchdown here would change the game. Devin Neal fights his way through. He's in for a score. Gutsy call from head coach Puma Whitlock, but it pays off. Devin Neal back in the end zone, and it's 7-0 Kansas. It took us over 15 minutes, over a quarter and a half, for just points. But finally we get it, and fittingly it's Devin Neal who starts the scoring. 2nd and 10 for TCU. Here's Hoover under pressure. He is sacked again. Dylan Watke, the graduate transfer, is in the backfield, forcing a loss of 8. 3rd down and long, backed up inside the 4. It's a handoff for Cook, who obliterates the initial hit, but only gets around 2 as he's wrapped up by Dylan Brooks. So that'll force a punt. Got to watch out for the opportunity of a block with the ball inside the 5. And this punt is blocked! Gilliam got a hand on it, and that will be a safety. The Jayhawks unable to pick it up in the end zone. As you can see here, Jason Gilliam didn't even block it. He kicked it up. It's batted out of multiple defenders' hands. Number 16, Brantley had a chance. Number 18, Damani Maxon, got his hands on it late. So it's now 9-0 as Daniels is sacked for a loss of yardage. I think the safety, you can make the argument, might have been the worst thing possible. Instead of starting with great field position, Kansas starts with a worse spot because of the safety. Ultimately, the pass is incomplete there on the screen, and TCU gets it back with plus field position, looking to make it a 1-score game. Here's a screen for Cook. To the outside, he stiff arms the defender, as he's going out of bounds. TCU now has it past the 50, probably for the first time all day. Hoover looking downfield. Nice throw and catch. That's Eric McAllister who gets the first down, and he's out of bounds, stopping the clock. 3rd and 5, around 30 to go in the half. Hoover has room, looking for the end zone. It's caught for a score by DJ Rogers. There is a flag, but I don't think this one's coming back. Roughing the passer against Caleb Taylor. The penalty will be declined. It's a touchdown for the Frogs, and look at the scoreboard. 6-9. Nice. Unfortunately, TCU will make the extra point, as it's now 9-7. We'll see if Kansas can score here before the end of the half. Daniels on the run, gets it over to Luke Grimm, who gets a short gain, and the Jayhawks will use their second timeout. They still have one more. Daniels looks short. He's got Grimm again. He is out of bounds for a first down as the clock stops. Kansas can really put themselves in field goal range, but they don't have much time to do it. Daniels looks downfield with a dart for Skinner. He brings it to the 25. We're now down to 9 seconds here in the first half. Kansas with one timeout in their back pocket. Daniels goes for the screen for Neal. He wants to get up the middle to try to center the kick, and he actually gets a lot of yardage out of it. So Kansas will call the timeout, and they're going to bring the field goal unit out. They decide to ultimately play for 3. Just look to add some points here before the end of the half, as the kick is good from Owen Piper-Gerdes. And that'll wrap up what has been a competitive first half. Not a lot of scoring early. It took us until halfway through the second quarter to get some offense. But now all of a sudden, both teams are putting up points quickly. 12-7 here at the break. Certainly an unconventional first half scoring-wise, but with a touchdown, another safety for a second consecutive week, and a field goal, the Jayhawks are up by 5. The defense has been really good, but they did slow down during that last drive. And I think offensively, we need to lean on the ground game. Lean on Devin Neal, who's been really good. 7 carries, 55 yards, and a score. It's the complete opposite of last week, where the passing game was brilliant, but our run game was really shaky. Today, the passing game has been shaky. Jalen Daniels has been one of the most efficient passers in college football, but right now he's barely completing 50% of his passes for a variety of reasons, whether it's good pressure, good coverage, or just missing throws, whereas the run game has been a lot better than it was a week ago. TCU starts with the ball and an opportunity to take the lead, but Hoover is sacked for a loss of 6. Dylan Wadke back in the backfield for a second time today, and now it is 3rd and 11. Hoover once again in empty. He will look to throw it. Under some pressure, goes up the middle. It's caught for a first down. Big play there to get the conversion for running back Trey Sanders, who was lined out as a receiver. On first down, they'll go back to Sanders, who breaks a tackle and is obliterated by the senior safety Marvin Grant. But TCU's moving it well here on this possession. Their offense looks like they've got new life after their slow start. Here's Hoover with it. Takes his shot downfield. It is broken up. Multiple players had a chance there. Savion Williams had it in his hands. One of the defenders also could have made a play on the ball. Now second down. Short throw is caught by McAllister. He gets the first down to around the 30. Quickly wrapped up by Mello Dotson, who had his first interception of the year a week ago. From the 30, here's Hoover looking downfield. He's got a wide open receiver. That's a first and more. It's a gain of around 20. Very nice play for Chase Curtis, the backup tight end and a native of Kansas. So now TCU is pretty much on the goal line. 1st and 10, handoff for Cook, and he is going backwards. Caleb Taylor leads the way, but after a solid gain on second down, it's now 3rd and 3. Hoover for the lead. He's got his man. It's J.P. Richardson for the score, and the Horned Frogs, for the first time today, are on top. 13-12. Got to imagine they're going to look to go for 2. Try to make it a clean 3-point lead. Hoover looks to throw it, and it is broken up in the secondary by Kobe Bryant. It's incomplete. The intended target looked like it was Richardson again. Kansas gets it back, 3rd and 7. Daniels looks downfield. He's got Grimm, who takes a shot, but hangs on for the first down. The Grim Reaper with a huge conversion that'll keep the chains moving. Now from the 42, 2nd and 4, handoff to Savion Morrison to the left side. Jukes away from a defender, breaks a tackle, and there's nobody in front of him. 58-yard touchdown for Savion Morrison, and the Jayhawks are back ahead. Earlier on the possession, Devin Neal suffered an injury. It's probably not going to be serious, but he's going to deal with wear and tear for the rest of the game and maybe beyond that. So because of that, Savion Morrison's going to get some extra snaps, and clearly He's looking to make the most of them with the longest offensive play of the afternoon, and Kansas is right back ahead. TCU's lead appears to be pretty short-lived, and now Kansas will look to go for two to make it a 7-point lead. It looks like Daniel Heishaw is the back in the backfield this time as Daniels keeps it, looking to go to the outside, and he cannot get it. TCU with the stop. Both teams have failed 2-point conversions, and it remains a 5-point game as the Frogs get it back with under 5 to go in the third. Cam Cook up the middle, gets by multiple defenders, is able to get the first down. I feel like Cook has been more productive of the two backs as a runner, but Trey Sanders has made more of an impact as a receiver. Now it is a first down from the 35. Play action. Hoover looks to throw it. Under pressure. He is sacked. And he is hurt. Possibly a major injury for TCU. It was Graydon Grimes and Jeremy Robinson in the backfield with half a sack each. Into the game at quarterback is the redshirt junior Ken Seals, who looks to keep this game afloat. 2nd and 19. Seals has an open man on the wheel route. It's Cam Cook. He gets around 18, and that'll make it a 3rd and 1. Big opportunity for TCU to look to get some momentum back here with the backup quarterback in the game. Seals, it's going to be a read option as he gets by Jeremy Robinson, has the 1st and more. Stiff arms Grant, and is finally wrapped up by Bryant. Not many guys can get by Marvin Graham, so to stiff arm him like that is really impressive. Now from around the 35, Richardson in motion. He gets the pitch, gets some blocks and space to the right side. Inside the 10, wrapped up at around the 9 by Devin Dye. 3rd and goal now. Here is Seals looking to throw it under pressure, and he will throw it away in the back of the end zone. He had open rushing room. Even if he wasn't going to get the touchdown, they could have made it a 4th and manageable. But instead, here is the kicking team. It's a chip shot from 25, and it's no good! Wide left! The field goal is off from senior Ryan Starling, who's one of the better kickers in the conference, but he misses an easy one. Daniels on 3rd and 2, loses yards on the run, so TCU is able to get the quick stop, as it is number 4, Nnamdi Obiazor with the TFL. Seals still in the game. He hands it off for Trey Sanders, breaks a tackle, gets the first down to around midfield. Good run for Sanders, who spent last year at Colorado. Before that, of course, with Alabama, as he fumbles it, and it's picked up by the defense. Dylan Woodkey, who's had an amazing game, forces it out, and it looks like it's recovered by Woodkey as well. What a play there by the transfer from Youngstown State. He's got 2 sacks, and now a fumble force and recovery. Sanders coughs it up, a major turnover here late in the 3rd quarter, and with the Jayhawks already up by 5, they've got a nice opportunity to continue to add some momentum and add to the lead. It looks like an RPO screen for Lawrence Arnold. He's got room to the left side, jukes away from the defender, and he's wrapped up by Channing Canada at around the 25, maybe the 24-yard line, and that'll wrap up the 3rd. 18-13, a very odd score with safeties and missed 2-point conversions. It's been a weird one, but the Jayhawks appear to be in control for the time being as they have the ball with plus field position on 2nd down. Daniels on the run. He gains around 5 before taking a big hit, and Daniels appeared to hurt his chest. He's going to stay in the game, but wear and tear, that's going to possibly linger for the rest of the ball game as Lamarion James is there with the TFL on Neal. It's a loss of like 7. Here's the field goal try from Owen Piper-Gerdes. That one is good. He's now 2 for 3 today, and the lead sits at 8. I feel like the Jayhawks could have gotten more out of that drive, but the Jalen Daniels injury really costed us some momentum. But nonetheless, we add 3. It's still a one-score game, though, 21-13. And now TCU will have the opportunity to tie the game up. Josh Hoover, back under center, returns at quarterback as it's a handoff to Sanders, and he will not break away from Marvin Grant. It's a loss of 2. A couple other defenders were there as well, but it was really Grant who led the way. 3rd and 1, Sanders up the middle, gets a first down and more as he brings it past the 35. Good run there for Sanders as he gets it back here on 2nd down. Another first down run. TCU has really ran it well in the 2nd half after not running it well to start the game. Sanders has been especially effective here over the past couple of minutes. 3rd and 3, another first down on the ground. This time it's the 3rd-string running back, Jeremy Payne, the freshman, who makes a play. Back to Cam Cook, breaks a tackle, breaks another, and gets another first down before being wrapped up by Cornell Wheeler. 2nd and 1. Sanders breaks off the hit, breaks off another hit, but he stumbles and loses around 7. O.J. Burrows brings him down. That's a huge play there, and now TCU has a 3rd and 8. Costly loss for Sanders. He'll get it back, though, and he gets around 2. He's wrapped up by Caleb Taylor, and TCU's going to go for it. I respect the aggressiveness. Down by 8. I guess they feel like 4.5 minutes is not enough time to give Kansas the ball back with the lead voluntarily. Hoover looking for the end zone. It's caught for a score. DJ Rogers with the touchdown, and TCU is a 2-point conversion away from tying it. So Kansas ran a full zone there, but the back left corner of the end zone was completely uncovered. Rogers had all of that space to himself, and Hoover nearly missed the throw, but Rogers was able to get a foot in. It's 21-19, and now that brings us to the 2-point try. Both teams 0 for 1 on 2-point conversions today. For the tie, Hoover rolls right. He's got JoJo Earl, and we are knotted up at 21. And now the Kansas offense gets ready for their biggest drive of the year. Here in a tie game with the two most important players, Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal, both currently playing through injury. That means everybody else is going to have to step up. Not a good start to the drive. Luke Grimm gets nothing there, and that brings us to a pivotal 3rd and 11. It looks like it's going to be a screen for Lawrence Arnold, who has room and will get the 1st and more. He's out of bounds at the 45. These receivers are going to have to make big plays after the catch, and who better than Lawrence Arnold, who's been tremendous this year with the football in his hands. Look for Arnold to be targeted a lot here on this possession. The Jayhawks are going to need him to make some big plays. 2nd and 7, short throw here for Devin Neal, and he just feels so much slower. He gets nothing there, wrapped up by Broughton, and that brings us to a pivotal 3rd and 7. Daniels up the middle. He's got Trevor Wilson, who does not get the 1st down. The defense gets the stop. There's Daniels' severe risk of injury, by the way. And now with a 4th and 2 at around midfield, a little bit past, with 2.5 minutes to go, we are going to elect to punt the ball. I trust our defense. They've given us every reason all year to believe in them. So let's put our undefeated season in their hands. Nonetheless, TCU here in a tie game can easily drive down the field and win it. Good start here for Cook. Should have been a loss of yards, but instead he gets around 4 or 5. Cook appears to be a little bit dazzled after the play. And so that'll make it a 2nd down and 6. Maybe the final play before the 2-minute warning. This time it's Sanders, and he will get the 1st down, wrapped up by Marvin Grant. We'll see if TCU can get one more playoff before the whistle, and they do not. With 2 minutes to go, we've got a good one. Tied at 21. TCU with the ball, looking to win this game. 1st and 10. Short throw is caught. That's going to go for around 7 or 8 yards. It's hauled in by Trey Sanders. 2nd and 2 now. Hoover looks to throw it downfield. It's broken up by Mello Dotson. Savion Williams, the intended target. Williams, the top receiver on the team, has had a pretty quiet game today. 3rd down, it's caught by Eric McAllister for a 1st down, and he's out of bounds, stopping the clock at around 1:41. TCU now has it at around midfield. So far, so good on this possession, as that one is batted down by Kobe Bryant. If he was a step ahead, I think he could have forced the turnover, but still a good defensive play to force the incompletion. 2nd and 10, Hoover goes short. It is caught by Richardson. He gets around 5, and that brings us to the biggest play of the game. 3rd and 5. Hoover goes short. It's caught for a 1st down. Savion Williams might have just brought the Horned Frogs into field goal range. This is the part of the game where you should chew clock and let Trey Sanders win it. Instead, they're not chewing clock, snapping it early, as it is Sanders who gets the ball. Solid gain of around 5, and they're going to continue to not chew clock. They still want to move quickly. Sanders is losing yardage. J.P. Brown brings him down, and that leads us to a huge 3rd and 7. If Kansas wants to win this game, they have to get the stop. Back to Sanders, to the outside. He's wrapped up by Javier Derrett. Huge tackle for the senior defensive lineman, and now that'll bring out the field goal team with 43 seconds left. For the lead, it's Ryan Starling, who missed an easy one earlier. From 46, he's got it. TCU up by 3, and now Kansas is going to need a quick drive from the offense, or else the undefeated season might be over. Big kick from Starling, who redeems himself after the miss, in the third quarter. We sit at around 40 seconds left here in this game, and it will be a fair catch in the end zone. The offense needs as much time as they can get. Daniels on first down. It's broken up for Arnold. There's going to be a lot of quick throws here. I don't think Daniels is going to look to push it downfield if he doesn't have to. Short pass caught by Skinner. He gets around 5. Kansas does not call time, and we're down to 25 seconds as Devin Neal gets the first down up the middle. Still not calling timeouts. They will continue to go no huddle. Under 20 to go. Daniels looks downfield. He's got Wilson wide open. And Trevor Wilson has it inside the 35 as Kansas will call a timeout. He was so wide open that Daniels was willing to push the pace of the drive, and it works. Great route by Wilson. Great job after the catch. I don't think they're quite in field goal range, though, and I don't think they want 3 anyway. I think they're looking for the end zone. That ball is overthrown for Skinner, incomplete. With 10 seconds to go, it's play action. Daniels throws it quick. It's caught by Casey. He's out of bounds with 6. Big play here for Kansas. They're definitely in field goal range, but they're going to keep the offense out on the field. Not to take a shot for the end zone, but instead get a few extra yards, center the kick, and call the final timeout with 2 seconds left. So now Owen Piper-Gerdes has a perfect opportunity to tie this game. 28-yard kick, fully centered, as TCU will use a timeout to look to ice him. It's been an up-and-down season for Piper-Gerdes, but his most important kick of the year is good! 24-24, we're headed to overtime. With only 40 seconds and 2 timeouts, what a drive from Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal battling injury with huge plays from unsung heroes like Trevor Wilson and Jared Casey in order to keep this game alive. And for the first time this year, the Jayhawks are going to overtime. Let's give a quick reminder on the college overtime rules as they have changed. So there will be a coin toss. The winner chooses if they start on offense or defense. After the first overtime, if you score a touchdown, you got to go for 2. After the second overtime, it's back-to-back 2-point conversions until we have a winner. So let's see what happens here with the coin toss. As you all know, for those who have been around the channel, tails never fails. TCU knows the drill. They're going to start on defense. I think that's the correct move, but I don't mind starting with the ball. The offense has some momentum after that big drive to tie the game, so I don't entirely hate having the offense right back on the field. On first down, Devin Neal gets nothing. Stuffed quickly in the backfield as it's now 2nd and 11. It's an out route for Arnold. He's got space! Lawrence Arnold puts Kansas ahead. A 26-yard touchdown for the senior wideout. Quick score for the Jayhawks, and they are on the board here in overtime number 1. A fast 2-play overtime, and now Kansas is in the power position as they are up by 7. Quick throw by Daniels, who's done a great job of getting rid of the ball quickly ever since his injury. Another great play after the catch by Lawrence Arnold. And now it is a 7-point lead with the extra point by Owen Piper-Gerdes. And now TCU's offense has their backs against the wall. I'm curious if they score a touchdown, if they'll choose to go for 2 voluntarily and end the game in the first overtime. We'll see what happens. They obviously have to score a touchdown for that to be the case. Short throw from Hoover, caught by Trey Sanders. He gets around 7. Good start for the Frogs. 2nd and 3 from the 18. Looks like an option pitch. Late toss for Sanders, and he somehow gets the first down and is over the century mark in yardage. TCU just dodged a bullet there. That could have been bad news. Hoover on first down. It is caught out of bounds for a gain of around 6 by McAllister. 2nd and 4 now for the Toads inside the 10. It's a read option. Hoover keeps it, and that's going to be a face mask on Purdy. A really bad penalty. It would have been 3rd down, but instead the sophomore Caleb Purdy is called for the face mask. That'll move TCU half the distance to the goal, and even more importantly, an automatic first down. So now they have it at the 2. Handoff to Sanders to the outside for the tie, and he might have lost a yard. Wrapped up by Kobe Bryant. 2nd and goal for the end zone. It's intercepted! Mello Dotson picks it off in the end zone, and Kansas survives. They improved to 5-0 with a miraculous overtime victory against TCU. The senior Mello Dotson with the interception to win it for Kansas. I'll be honest, at points during this game, I did not think we were going to win. after TCU kicked the field goal to take the lead with 40 seconds left. I was very mortified for what could have happened offensively. With Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal both injured, I felt like we were in a lot of trouble, but Daniels made some huge throws. We got the field goal. We got the early touchdown in overtime. And Mello Dotson, who had a great day in coverage after getting torched last week, ends up being the hero to win it. I know it says 24-29. I guess it's not counting our safety, which is odd, but obviously we won 31-24. I got to give Jalen Daniels credit. He did not have his best game, but even battling through injury, he was resilient and gritty. He made big throws down the stretch in pain. Hopefully, those chest issues will not be an underlying issue. Devin Neal had a solid game. Jalen Daniels quiet on the ground. Sevion Morrison, of course, with a huge run. A number of receivers stepped up. Grimm played well. Skinner with his best game of the year. Lawrence Arnold was tremendous again. Wilson and Casey both with huge receptions on that final drive. The offensive line was all right, and the defense, again like last week, wasn't perfect, but they got stops when they needed to. 2 sacks for Wadke, along with a fumble force and fumble recovery, and of course, Mello Dotson with the game winner. I guess it's not crediting our safety, but it will credit Gilliam with the block. Got to shout out Owen Piper-Gerdes as well. He missed a long field goal, but he went 3 of 4, including the game tire as time expired in regulation. Josh Hoover was really efficient. He had the interception at the end, but overall he was pretty good. Trey Sanders was also really impressive. I thought their run game was really solid, really efficient. They had a few receivers play well. Savion Williams was pretty quiet, though. Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson both with really good games in coverage, per usual. Defensively, I feel like they really held up against one of the most explosive offenses in the country, but they didn't get stops down the stretch when they needed to. Another reason why they lost was the lack of big plays on the defensive side of the ball. They didn't force any turnovers. They only had the 1 sack, whereas our defense forced 2 turnovers. We had 5 sacks, and I think that was a big difference. So as I simulate, Dylan Wadke ends up winning the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week, and he also wins the National Defensive Player of the Week. This is the second time in this series we've had the National Player of the Week on the defensive side of the ball. I get that he had a really good game, 2 sacks, fumble force, fumble recovery, but like, seriously, there's 130 teams that play each week. How are they not finding performances better than like 2 sacks and a turnover to win Player of the Week? I'm surprised there isn't one, but hey, I'm not complaining. So with that, let's go around the nation and take a look at our highlights for Week 5. We'll start things off in Miami. It's all about the U, and the Hurricanes look to add their win streak to 4 as they face off against Virginia Tech. This ended up being a really good game, but a fourth quarter comeback by Miami would propel them to the win. Ever since they were down 27-0 at halftime in Week 1, Miami's been one of the best teams in the country since that disastrous first half. Cam Ward had another really solid showing, 273 yards and 3 touchdowns, helping improve Miami to a 4-1 record, moving up in the polls. Damian Martinez had a good game on the ground, and Jacoby George, the senior wideout, scored 3 times to help Miami get the win over one of their rivals, Virginia Tech, who did play a really competitive game. Their offensive playmakers performed at a high level too. Quarterback Kyron Jones only completed 9 passes, but he averaged over 20 yards per completion. And by Hayashul Tootin, the running back, averaged nearly 10 yards a pop. Let's now head down to Texas. The top-ranked Longhorns face off against Mississippi State. This game ended up being a lot closer than it should have been. But Quinn Ewers was able to remind everybody why he is the current Heisman frontrunner. With 2 late touchdowns to Alabama transfer Isaiah Bond, the Longhorns would hold on to their undefeated season and the number 1 spot in the AP polls, beating Mississippi State in a close one. I feel like every Texas game this year has been really close. This one no exception, 38-31 your final. I don't think Texas deserves to be number 1. Sure, they beat Michigan in the Big House 16-0, but I feel like they really haven't played much better than teams like Georgia and Ohio State, who they passed up in the rankings. Not to say Texas hasn't been good this year, but I feel like they should stay at that number 3 slot where they've been all season, because outside of the Michigan game, most of their wins have been really unimpressive. Quinn Ewers has had an efficient season, but he hasn't necessarily had any big performances, although he was clutch today down the stretch. Oklahoma State's coming off a tough loss last week against Utah. They're looking to bounce back against Kansas State. However, junior running back DJ Giddens absolutely annihilated the Cowboy defense, leading to a blowout victory for the Wildcats who might be back. They started the year off slow. They lost a couple games early in the season, but DJ Giddens has had back-to-back monster performances, running over BYU last week, and more impressively, dominating against a really strong Oklahoma State team. 42-14 your final in favor of the Wildcats. Oklahoma State has now dropped 2 in a row. Losing a close game on the road to Utah is one thing, but losing by nearly 30 is another. Giddens with 3 touchdowns. Avery Johnson had 2 through the air. As for Oklahoma State, I've got to be honest, I've been really unimpressed with Ollie Gordon II this year. Coming into the year, he was looked at as the best running back in the country, and I feel like he's been underwhelming through 5 games. Let's take a look at our top 10 matchup this week. Number 9, Louisville against number 8, Notre Dame. I was really curious to see how this game goes, especially for a Louisville team who I'm quite high on, but they struggled. Louisville did not look like one of the top-end teams across the country, as they would drop this one pretty convincingly, 28-10 against the Irish, with 3 passing touchdowns by Riley Leonard. With wins against Texas A&M and now Louisville this year, this Notre Dame team appears to be for real as they jump up to number 6 with the big win over the Cardinals. Interestingly, senior quarterback Tyler Shuck did not play in the second half, replaced by freshman Pierce Clarkson, who actually played fairly well. Shuck also had a pretty decent game, but they struggled to run the ball, and their defense really was not great, with 3 passing touchdowns from Riley Leonard and a solid day on the ground for what has been one of the most efficient rushing offenses in the nation. Let's go back to the big house here. Michigan continuing to look to rebuild some stock after losing to Texas. They'll face off against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Early in this game, things looked routine for Michigan. Alex Orji with 3 passing touchdowns, 2 of which were caught by tight end Colston Loveland. The Gophers, however, had a big fourth quarter led by running back Darius Taylor, one of the more underrated players across the country. The sophomore was nearly able to propel a big comeback, but Michigan survives. They win at 21-17, improving to 4-1 with a good game in the air from Alex Orji. Donovan Edwards runs for over 100 on the ground. Samaj Morgan and Colston Loveland both playing really well. Got to give Minnesota credit, though, for the comeback, specifically sophomore back Darius Taylor, who had a pretty good game, especially down the stretch. Let's head to Piscataway. Rutgers is undefeated. They'll face off against the 22nd-ranked Washington Huskies, who just lost their first game a week ago against Northwestern at home. At surface value, this looks like a pretty evenly matched, fun game in the rain. Oh boy, it was anything but. The man who stole the show today was wide receiver Dymere Miller, the graduate transfer from Monmouth. He scored not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but 5 touchdowns, leading Rutgers to the win, 59-10. Washington lost by 50. You have to be a sick individual to enjoy the Washington downfall. 6 passing touchdowns for quarterback Athan Kaliak-Manis. On the ground, Kyle Monangai had a huge game, averaging 9.4 yards a carry. And then through the air, Dymere Miller, hello! 9 for 184 and 5. Easily one of the best individual performances we've seen from any player across the country this year. As for Washington, not quite as pretty. Will Rogers struggled. The ground game was honestly pretty good. That was their only strength. They probably should have ran it more. Let's head to Tuscaloosa. Alabama has a big test. Obviously, they've struggled this year, but they're coming off a bye week. Let's see how they perform in SEC play here against Georgia. Ultimately, this did end up being a really competitive game. Both offenses trading punches. Carson Beck and Jalen Milroe both performed really well. This touchdown from Milroe tied the game at 31, giving Georgia the ball back for one more opportunity to win the game. And senior quarterback Carson Beck would take advantage. Dominic Lovett with a huge play after the catch, waltzing into the end zone for the win. 38-31. Georgia survives in Tuscaloosa against the Tide. Alabama now 0-3 at home. I'm not sure if Nick Saban even lost 3 home games in the 20 years he was this team's coach. Jalen Milroe played well, and it's pretty clear that this Alabama team is a lot better than they were the first couple weeks of the year when they lost to Western Kentucky and South Florida. The problem is they already have 3 losses. They don't have any margin for error. They probably have to go undefeated to make the playoff. So they are in a lot of trouble. They dug themselves a hole, and while they're a much better team now, it's going to be hard to get out. Let's take a look at number 6, Penn State. They're going to face off against the Illinois Fighting Illini, a team we beat earlier in the season. And man, this Illinois team looked nothing like they did in week 2. Luke Altmaier, remember how he turned the ball over 4 times in the second half against us? Well, today he threw 4 touchdowns in one of the most hostile places to play in the country. Not only does Illinois win, but they win by a lot. 45-19, a dominant showing from the Illini. Penn State drops from 6 to 16, and deservedly so. They laid an egg in this game. Mario Sanders II leads the way receiving with 2 scores, while Drew Aller picked off twice in what was a game to forget for the Nittany Lions. Let's head to Orlando for a battle of Big 12 unbeatens. Colorado and UCF looking to add to their resume and improve to 2-0 within the conference. And the star of the show ended up being Shedeur Sanders. He's been a little inconsistent as a passer this year, but he was able to connect with Travis Hunter for this touchdown. The best receiver for Colorado this year has not been Hunter, though. It's been senior LeJontay Wester, who has been tremendous. Colorado wins handedly 38-17, jumping to number 18. The Buffaloes are now 5-0. They already have more wins than they did last year. I got to give credit to Coach Prime. He's done a lot of yapping this offseason, but you know what? Him and his team are backing it up, and he deserves to be yapping back at the doubters. 3 scores in this one for Shedeur Sanders. And interestingly, Colorado struggled early in this game. They were down 10-0 after the first quarter and would outscore UCF 38-7 the rest of the way. I'm still pretty high on this UCF team. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in conference. I just think that Colorado was the better team, and I didn't think I'd be saying this, but the Buffaloes look like a legitimate contender to win this conference with teams like us and Utah right now at the top. Colorado's playing just as well as the top of the teams within the conference. SMU has gotten off to a great start in the ACC, but now they had their biggest test yet against number 13 Florida State. SMU would end up passing the test. In a low-scoring battle, a fourth-quarter comeback led by junior quarterback Preston Stone would propel the Mustangs to a 5-0 start. They win this one 24-21, including outscoring the Seminoles 14-0 in the fourth quarter. A fairly mediocre day for the senior quarterback DJ Uiagalelei. He wasn't bad at all, but he didn't do enough to help his team win the game. Florida State drops their second of the year. They've still got some room in the ACC to look to make it to the conference championship, still get a playoff spot, but their margin for error has certainly dropped, despite a huge game from senior receiver Ja'Kai Douglas. As for the Mustangs, 3 scores, including 2 in the fourth for Preston Stone, who had a really strong performance. A number of receivers stood out, particularly Jordan Hudson, who had a great game for SMU, along with junior tight end RJ Maryland, who's proving himself as a possible NFL draft prospect, maybe not this year, but certainly in the future. Let's head down to Oxford, Mississippi. Ole Miss has looked really vulnerable this year, and for the first time all year, they've got a good team on the schedule in Kentucky. I'm really curious to see how Ole Miss performs here, because they've got to show me something, and overall, they ended up showing me quite a bit. Jackson Dart had a really solid game through the air. Senior receiver Jordan Watkins was tremendous. He took over this game as the Rebels are able to win this one 28-17, despite a push in the fourth quarter from Kentucky. They never really stood a chance as the Wildcats dropped their second game of the year. Brock Vandegrift did play pretty well, a lot better than he did in the loss a couple weeks ago against his former school, Georgia. But Kentucky's offense just really was not any good until the fourth quarter, and at that point, it was too little too late. Josh Caddis, the tight end, and Dane Key both performed well. Key scores twice down the stretch, but it's not enough. With a great performance from Jackson Dart, he only threw 3 incompletions. Quiet day on the ground. Ulysses Bentley was inefficient, but Jordan Watkins was awesome. 8 for 171 and a score. Juice Wells performed pretty well too. As that brings us to the final game of the day, another matchup within the Big 12. 2 of the best teams within the conference. Number 20, Arizona, playing a lot better after a slow start, faces off against number 7, Utah. The star of the show, once again, Cameron Rising, who dominated last week against Oklahoma State, and he was tremendous again. Rising has gotten no Heisman love, and I don't get it at all. He has been excellent this year. 25-45, Utah with the win over Arizona. Noah Fifita was okay. He wasn't great, but he certainly wasn't bad. I don't think he's the reason why they lost, per se. Through the air, Tessitoya McMillan with another really strong game. He looks like the top receiver in this class right now, in my opinion. As for Utah, 237 yards and 4 touchdowns in the air for Rising, who ran for 69 and a score on the ground. Utah looks like the team to beat in the Big 12. They are easily the team in this conference who I feel we are most threatened by. Let's take a look at some other scores around the country. Ohio State takes care of business. Texas A&M barely squeaks away from Arkansas. The Aggies, though, now 4-1 on the season. Clemson with a close win against Stanford. UNC jumps into the top 25. Oregon with kind of a close win against UCLA. And then Oklahoma beats Auburn. I want to look at the Big 12 now separately as well, given that we are fully into conference play. Texas Tech, 4-1. They beat Cincinnati. Houston with a high-scoring win over Iowa State. Baylor beats BYU. And the other games, of course, we already covered. As for some matchups across the rest of the country, we had some interesting scores. Louisiana loses their first game of the year against Wake Forest. The team they beat last week, Tulane, gets back on the win column with a close win over South Florida. NC State, who has not won since week 1, they get back on the win column, manhandling Northern Illinois. LSU also wins their first game in a while as they beat South Alabama. USC, though, drops another, falling to Wisconsin, and they are now out of the top 25, now having lost 2 games in a row. Let's take a look at our new polls as the top 5 remains the same. Notre Dame jumps Utah, moving up to number 6, while we are now number 8, firmly with this high-class group of undefeated programs. Given how we've played over the last 2 weeks, I feel like this team might be bound to drop a game at some point. We were a few plays away from losing to both West Virginia and TCU, so hopefully we can keep it going. Louisville and Penn State drop quite a bit, as does Florida State, while Rutgers, Kansas State, Iowa, and UNC are all ranked, replacing USC, Arizona, Washington, and Kentucky. As for, of course, the conference standings, there's now only 4 teams undefeated within Big 12 play. And, of course, your players of the week. As we know, Dylan Wudke won it not just for the Big 12, but nationally as well. 4 consecutive weeks with the player of the week on the defensive side of the ball. What are the odds? That'll bring us into Week 6. We are headed to the desert to face off against one of the newer members of the Big 12 in Arizona State. We've got a lot to talk about recruiting-wise, with multiple of our top targets committing to programs. Let's see how lucky we were able to get and if we're going to be able to grow this class. Hope everybody enjoyed the episode. Certainly a really fun game against the Horned Frogs. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.